Hello, America. Big Lou here. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year 2019. Today is our holiday version of how to make money in construction fast, real fast. Now, recently, perhaps you've heard a lot on television and whatnot, the internet, the term quid pro quo. Well, in the construction business, that's one of the primary concepts that everybody subscribes to. In my neighborhood, we call it you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. Essentially, what that means is you do something for me, I'll do something for you. Simple. All right. So, this particular story centers around a time when I was in the construction business. And I was doing a municipal project for one of the towns outside of the city where I lived. And at that time, the town engineer had a project that he wanted to do for the local church in that town. So he called me up and he said, Lou, I need you to do me a favor. So I said, sure, Don, anything, you name it, what is it? He says, well, you know the church over there on what you call it street, right? I go, now by the way, the names again in this segment have been changed to protect the guilty and the innocent. He says, yeah, the pastor of St. Mataraz's needs a new sewer put into the church. And, you know, they don't have a lot of money at that church. And I said, well, how much are we talking about, Don? He says, oh, it's only about 300 feet, a couple of manholes. Well, I go, 300 feet, that's a lot of sewer. He says, look at Lou, I got it covered. I got one of the suppliers to donate all the materials. So all you got to do is provide the equipment and the men to do the job. I says, well, okay. Anyway, he calls the supplier, I call the supplier, we get it all together. The supplier sends over all the sewer pipe. Well, just so happens that sewer pipe was kind of the leftovers. And there was 3 different manufacturers that made that sewer pipe. So, there was 300 feet, but there was 100 feet from John Mansville, another 100 feet from Cloud, and it was all this asbestos pipe. Anyway, you can't use it anymore, legally, so they had to clean their yard. So, some donation, huh? Anyway, the supplier sends the pipe. Now, the problem with that is that one pipe doesn't fit in the other pipe just right. It's not a tight fit for those of you technically oriented people. Now, that wouldn't be a problem if you knew where each one of those pieces of pipe were going. You could put 100 feet of one, 100 feet of another, 100 feet of another, but that's not the way it came out. They were all mishmashed in all different configurations. So anyway, I called up my guys, the 3 wise guys and son sewer contractors. Yeah, 3 wise guys. Anthony, Vinny, and Tony. Oh, wait a minute, not Tony. Anthony, Vinny, and Angelo. Anthony and Tony's the same name, right? Yeah. Okay, Anthony, Vinny, and Angelo, and son. Now, you may want to know the backstory about and son. I guess the way the story goes is the 3 brothers had a girlfriend that got pregnant. Well, she had a baby. Well, they weren't quite sure who was the father of the baby. So they did the typical Italian thing. They got rid of the woman and they kept the baby. So even though the son didn't work on the job with him because he was too young, they named the company Anthony, three wise guys and son, sewer contractors. Okay, there we go. We got that out of the way. Anyway, the boys went out there and they got the manholes put in and they dug it up and they put the sewer pipe in. They got it all done. And they called me up and they said, "Lou, we got the sewer all done. But here's the problem. It's going to leak like a school of pasta." Now, for those of you who want a translation on what school of pasta means, school of pasta is what you drain the pasta in when you take it out. Okay. So I said, well, we got to figure out a way where we can make that work and make it test. They said, don't worry, we got it under control. We just wanted to tell you. We've already ordered the inspection. I go, well, you realize you got to do an exfiltration test. It means you got to fill the sewer up with water, and it's got to hold water for so. Don't worry about it, Lou. That was Anthony telling me, and he was the youngest brother. He did all the talking. We got it under control. We call the inspector. He's going to be there first thing in the morning. So I meet him down there first thing in the morning, and Richard Porello, who was the inspector for the town, met them on the job. Anyway, they put the plug in the sewer on the low side, and from the high side, they filled the sewer up from the manhole with water. They got the hoses out there, and they filled it all up right to the top. And so Richard was there, and he watched them fill it up and all the rest of what it took to get it inspected. And he said, it looks pretty good. Now we got to wait a half an hour and see if that water stays. And if it stays up to the top, that proves it's not leaking. It's just simple. It's simple physics. Okay. So he said, Richard, the inspector, they called him Little Dick. They said, Little Dick, go down and check the plug in the manhole, make sure that's not leaking. So he says, sure. So he went down to the low side manhole, and he went down inside the manhole. Meanwhile, Angelo followed him over there. Now, Angelo was the oldest brother. He was big, but he was quiet. Well, Little Dick was down in the sewer looking to see. He calls down, how is it, Dick? Is it leaking? And he looks up, and he says, I don't think so. It looks pretty good. Can you throw my flashlight down? Angelo says, sure. He takes the flashlight, throws it down in the manhole. Then he takes the manhole cover, and he puts it on top of the manhole. Now, Little Dick is down in the manhole. Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? What's going on? Angelo put a cement block on top of the manhole, and he goes up to the other manhole, which was leaking like a school of pasta. Well, they had the hoses on, and they kept filling it up. As the water was leaking out, they kept adding more water to it, and adding more water to it, and that lasted for about a half an hour. At the end of the half an hour, they had it filled up nice to the top. Angelo went back down to the manhole, takes the block off the cover, removes the cover, and says, Dick, what are you doing? We've been waiting for you for a half an hour up here. He's all nervous and he's all red in the face. He didn't know what to do. He says, somebody put them. What are you talking about? Somebody put the cover on the manhole. Nobody put the cover on the manhole. What are you kidding or what? He scurries out and he runs up and he says, Jesus, what the hell's the matter with you guys? They go, what do you mean? Anyway, he goes up. He says, get over here. We got a half an hour. We got to get going. We got to go to the next job. Come up here. We even got your paperwork ready for you. They went over there. He looked in the other manhole. The water was up to the top. He was so flustered. He says, give me that. He writes the inspection report up, signs his name to it, said it was passed, handed them the sheet, and he took off and went away. End of story.